The case of Lizzie Borden is one that seems recognizable at the start. An entitled, potentially spoiled girl doesn't like the norms her society has in place. Norms that endorse the submission of a wife to her husband, the degradation of a woman. And so, of course, this girl is convinced the norms exempt her. She doesn't like them, and so why wouldn't they? But when she is reminded of the cruel yet obvious truth, she becomes irate. But of course, why wouldn't she? When she's always gotten everything she wanted before, why not this? And so she's angry. Angry with her complacent father and nagging stepmother, and decided to do something. As the song goes,
Lizzie Borden took Ham house, and gave her mother 40 laughs. But she saw what she had done, and gave her father 40.
June 20th, 1893. Lizzie Borden was officially acquitted of her charges, and as far as the law was concerned, she was not involved at all in these murders. However, intuition, or maybe even common sense, would suggest that maybe she was a bit involved. Allegedly, of course. But her story is an interesting one that is so much more layered and nuanced than what it may seem initially. The purpose of this analysis is to take a look into the mind of Lizzie Borden, to be able to understand what exactly it was about her that fascinates us, what drove her, triggered her, what made her different. But to answer these questions, it must first be asked, who was Lizzie Borden? Lizzie Borden was born on July 19, 1860, by her mother, who unfortunately passed away when she was 3 years old. The responsibility of raising her then became that of her father, Andrew Borden, and later that of her stepmother, Abigail Borden. One could say that Lizzie was the black sheep of the family. She wasn't always fully understood or even liked, especially by her stepmother. On the contrary, her older sister Emma, while not necessarily the golden child, was much more digestible to her parents, much less abrasive, demanding, and yielding. And so it was clear to Lizzie from a young age that she did not fit society's expectations of a woman. As she grew, she developed a relationship with a certain Dr. Patrick, a doctor who had a wife and children. This scandalous affair did nothing but taint the image of both Lizzie and Dr. Patrick, but this was not something that Lizzie seemed to mind. If anything, it empowered her. Her romance with Patrick wasn't one that was built out of love or care, but rather by her amusement, her entertainment with this game, as she called it. But it was ultimately fueled by her rebellion and rage. It was an anger at not just her family or society, but also at herself. It seemed that though she understood and even flaunted the fact that she was different, she still resented that part of herself. She knew that she wasn't the nice little girl that Emma wanted her to be. In her head, she thought there was a magic formula for becoming a woman that she didn't get as a result of the death of her mother. And so therefore she thought she was born defective. She once told a story of a puppy at her farm who turned out to be a bit different from the rest. She recounts how the puppy was ignored, isolated, and later drowned by her father. She wraps up the story by saying, "That's what you do when things are different." The love that was lacking in her relationships flowed in abundance when it came to her love for her birds. This love seemed to be deeper than a simple interest or hobby. Her connection to her birds was almost symbolic of her desire to be free. And so when the birds were ruthlessly murdered by her father, something in her died that day. As he took the axe and killed them, she ran and held them in her hand. She felt their hearts throbbing and pumping, and the blood gushed out of their necks, all over her hands. It was more than just the death of the birds, but rather the cruelty in which their lives were taken, without remorse, without care, without a second thought. It showed not only that her father was quick to take away the things that she loved, but more so, symbolically, it showed how he had never cared about her freedom, as he was quick to take away the freedom she felt with her birds. In this fleeting state of anger, he might have loved her, but not enough to set her free. But to Lizzie, that is not what love is. When one's freedom is threatened, their identity goes into jeopardy. Without a secure identity, they take on any that is presented to them. They let their emotions overtake them and control them. What can be created of the person in that moment is something that can truly be horrendous. If one was to assume Lizzie killed her parents, and to understand her mind, one would have to understand the mind of a killer. There's so much nuance when it comes to the topic of life and the value of it, and even the ways in which a killer kills. Where do intentions and context come into play? And so therefore, it is pointless to ask, what is a killer? But rather, why a killer? Because ultimately they are created, not formed, and can be formed by a simple switch of a trigger. One factor that can be considered is mental health. One that was particularly prominent in Lizzie Borden was depression, as was evident when she kept on repeating to Dr. Patrick, "I want to die. I want to die." It was almost like a cry for help. After her birds were killed, she continued crying for help to whoever would listen. Her father, Emma, and even her stepmother. But as she experienced this depressive episode, those around her failed her. When she was spiraling, they did nothing to help her or get her the help that she needed. When she begged her sister Emma to stay there for her and not leave, Emma was quick to dismiss her feelings. She was more concerned with avoiding confrontation than comforting her sister. The same goes for her father. When she begged him to stay, to listen to her, trust her, he was more concerned with pleasing others and maintaining a good image, and so he left her feeling abandoned. A killer is someone who is misunderstood, vengeant, impulsive. All these elements shape the fact that the killer believes that their own issues, problems, feelings, prove to be more significant than human life. And so maybe Lizzie Borden was a killer, but maybe also it was the result of the failure of those around her. This is a story that highlights a shared accountability. While this analysis is not meant to defend Lizzie's action, it can still paint a story that consists not only of the entitled, spoiled girl, but a traumatized, hurting woman. One who was let down by those around her and in turn created something in her that led to a disastrous outcome. But more so, what I'm trying to communicate is the harm of societal expectations. It creates a world where people feel caged and scared of their identity. This fear festers into resentment, which cultivates into something ugly, something killers are produced from. So, was Lizzie Borden a killer? Maybe, but just as much as the society she was surrounded by.